Hey, next up we've got Mikael Petterson. Good to see you, Mikael.
Hey, good to see you.
So give us a little background on yourself.
So I'm Mikael. I'm head of simulation for MPC Episodic. I started out as a journalist in advertisement, and the tempo was pretty fast. And then I went to film, where the tempo was less fast. And now I finally found the golden middle ground in episodic, where you have enough time to do cool stuff, but it's fast enough to not get bored.
Mm-hmm. So what's today's presentation going to be about?
It's going to be about KineFX and all the cool thing that brings to crowd.
Right on. Well, let's get started.
Cool. Let's go.
KineFX is making crowds even better in Houdini 18.5. So instead of having to go into chops to modify agent clips, we can now use motion clips. This makes it so much more convenient to fix stuff with clips like intersections, mirroring, removing weird frames, blend clips, and so on. The cool thing with motion clips is that you can convert between them, poses, and clips easily and use them for different things. I'm going to show you a few of these in just a minute, and you'll see that it will open completely new workflows. It's a massive level up for crowds, and crowds in Houdini were pretty ace already, so woohoo! Today I'm going to start with some motion clip basics, then I'll show you an example of clip blending, and then I'm going to demonstrate how to promote agents from a crowd, tweak the animation, and then convert them back to a crowd again. Let's get started. Okay, let's start by dropping down a mocap biped 3. And I'm going to go to zombie, and I'm going to uncheck this in place. And then I am going to create an agent by dropping down a geometry and an agent sub. And then I'm going to point to the zombie. So here we go. Cool. Okay, let's see what we can do with this. So first, let's drop down an agent animation unpack. And if we look at this, we can see that we have a few different options. So the first option is pose. So in that, we have this little stick figure. And then we can turn that into Motionclip. And then suddenly we can see each frame at the same time in the viewport. And then we have packed motion clips. And if I switch over to that, it doesn't seem to do much of a difference. So what's going on here? If we go back to Motionclip, and then I'm going to go to the spreadsheet. Here we have 240 packed geometries. You can see that I have a middle click here, packed geos, 200 or 241 actually, yeah, because it starts on 0. Each packed geometry is a frame. So if we go to the primitive tab, we can see we have a time sample on each packed geometry as well. But if I would switch to packed motion clips, now we just have one packed geometry. You want this if you want to add multiple motion clips to an agent at the same time. Otherwise, you have to add them one by one. But if I would unpack this, and then I'm going to close this down. Now we're back, so we have all these time samples again. And let us just unpack it one more step. And here we can see what's going on under the hood. So now we have all these polylines, and on all the points, we have a name attribute that is referring to the joint. And then we have two matrices. We have a local transform and a transform. And that is a structure of a motion clip. Okay, so I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to delete this unpack. So let us just feed this back to an agent. So I'm going to use an agent clip node. And I'm going to connect these two. And in the input menu, you can now see that we have motion clip as an option. So we can select that. And you can see also we have this checkbox here, treat packed primitives as inputs. And that is if you are using packed motion clips. And that reminds me, I need to go up to output here and set it to motion clip. I just want to add this one clip. So I'm going to call this clip updated. And now in this set current clip, we can see we have updated and we have walk. Obviously, these will be the same now because we are not doing anything. But let's do something so we can see the difference. So I'm going to set this to updated. And then I'm going to drop down a motion clip retime. And this is exactly what it sounds like. You can retime the clip. So for example, I can set the speed to 0.5. And now you can see he's moving very slowly. I can set the start frame and the end frame. And it's a float, so you can set it on subframes. So simple, but kind of useful. So let's try something else. Another thing we can do is that you can delete part of the clip. So I'm going to drop down a Motionclip post delete. So I'm going to connect this, and just to see what's going on, I'm going to take a chunk out of it. So I'm going to do, let's have 20 to 40, and then uncheck this. So let's say we have this little gap here, and I can connect this again. And if we look at this and see how the agent moves, you can see he slides over there in the gap. So he interpolates between these two frames. And the timing is, of course, the same as we have the time sample on each packed geometry. So that's pretty cool. Let's do something more exciting. Turn this to pose, and I'm going to show you how to mirror a clip now. You could do this before, but you have to go in and make some logic in chops, and it was not very straightforward. But this is way easier. So you can see, like, immediately by dropping this down, I have a mirrored version of him. So here's the O version, and then we have the mirror version here. And now we have it as a pose, and that won't work with the agent clip node. So we need to convert this to Motionclip, but that is very straightforward. We just need to drop down a Motionclip node. So you can see it like that. So now it's back being a Motionclip again. And by the way, you can also change other things here. You can see you can change the frame range. You can change the sample rate. You can also pack the inputs. You can see you have multiple inputs, so you can plug in more than one pose in here. But let's connect this back and see what we got. And now we got this weird skinning issue. And this is just because the rig mirror pose are not really sure which of the joints is supposed to mirror. So now it's mirroring the shoulders as well, and we don't want that. If you go into the rig mirror pose, you can go down to this position threshold and drag that up a little bit, and then you can see it's going to work itself out. So now we have it mirrored. Cool. And now you can see the previous one and the new one. Okay, so let's do something else. I'm going to take this away. I'm going to save this guy up here. I'm going to drop down a new agent animation unpack. I'm going to set that here. So I'm going to set this to Motionclip. So another thing that you need to do sometimes is that, so maybe you have like a weird frame that you want to do something with. Then you can use this Motionclip post insert. So what that does is that you put in your Motionclip in here, and then the pose in here, and then you tell it what frame you want to overwrite. So in this case, because we are feeding the animation back, it will be the same frame, so it won't do anything. But let us drop down a time shift. And in the time shift, let's set that to 40. Up. So now we just have this frame, and then let's insert that on frame 20. So if we look what that gives us, you can see if we go to frame 20, you do a little jump because that frame has been overwritten now. You can use a rig pose to just correct him further. And now you can see we have him with this corrected pose. So maybe you want to do even more and you want to overwrite a bunch of frames. Then it might be easier just to do it this way. I'm going to drop down a Motionclip. And I'm going to remove this time shift here. And then connect these guys. And then I'm going to clear this out. So now I'm basically just feeding in a pose that gets converted. But this means that I can also keyframe it. So for example, say I want him to, maybe I want him to start looking this way. And then I keyframe that. And then on this frame, here he's starting with his head twist. So you can see him turning his head. You can, of course, just tweak it how you want it. Obviously, you could do a similar thing with agent edits before. This is just a bit nicer. But it's obviously still just FK here. But a really cool and powerful thing you can do now is that you can just create IK chains on the fly. So let's just have a look how to do that. So I'm going to remove that one. And then, so now we have him as a pose. So the first thing we need is to create controllers. Say in this case, I want to make this arm to an IK change. So then I will need an effector. I want something to control the elbow and the root. An easy way to create controllers is to use delete joint. So in this way, I can go in here, I can just select these three, and then delete non-selected. So now I have these two polylines with 3 points. Then I can drop down in IK chains, connect these two in here, and you can see I can have multiple IK chains, but in this case we're just going to create one. I want this to be the root, and I want this to be the elbow, and then I want this to be the effector. Then here you have match by name. If I check that, it will just match up the effectors with the name attribute. And because we are using the same skeleton, these guys will have the same name. This is very convenient because first of all, you get the controllers placed correctly, and then you also automatically have them connected by name. So by doing this now, I can drop down a rig pose again. I don't have to use a rig pose, by the way. So this is just points. So you can just create your own logic in Vex or do something else procedurally, and it will just work. But this is just a convenient way of moving stuff in the viewport. So I'm going to take that. So I'm going to move the elbow back a little bit. And then maybe I'm going to drag the hand over here. Something like that. And now if we look at this, we have this blend slider here. So if I drag that, now you see he'll try to solve the IK chain. Now it's a bit overstretched, but let's go back here. So it's working fine, as you can see. And then connect that to the Motionclip again. And if we look, now we have our result. Whoop! You have his flimsy IK arm I just created. And if I drag that back, we get the other one. We get the old one. One last thing I'm going to show before we go to the first example is I'm going to show you a little workflow tip. For a lot of clips, you're going to have them being in place. So if I would create this in place, let's have this set as a Motionclip. So I will set this agent to in place. So I will say, okay, the hips are the locomotion node, and then convert in place. You can see, first of all, you get this extra node that is locomotion, so you can see the motion through the clip. We also have all the frames overlapping, so it can be a bit hard to see what's going on. The good news is that these point positions that you have, they're just for visualization purposes, so you can actually move them. So what I usually do is I drop down a wrangle, and then I do something like I'm going to move it in Z, and then maybe I take the PTNum, and then multiply that with some spacing. Something like that. And then let's create that parameter, and then I can just drag this out, and now I can see a little bit better what's going on. And this won't affect the clip at all. So if we go back and have a look on this updated clip, you can see he just looks as usual. So yeah. Cool, let's go to the first example. Okay, let's use something else than Mocap Biped 3. So I'm going to drop down a geometry. And here I'm going to drop down an agent sub again. And I'm not going to use character rig, I'm going to import an FBX. And I'm also going to uncheck this convert units because it's not done in Maya. Scale is correct, I don't need to scale it down. So there we go. I also downloaded some free mocap online, so I'm going to have an FBX animation import, and then I have this run, for example, running there. Let's call that run, and then I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to have a kick as well. So there's a flying kick. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, I need to retarget this, obviously, because it's not the same rig. Before I do that, I just want to roughly match up the scale of the rigs. I can use a rig match pose for that. Also, I need to convert this to an agent animation unpack. So I need to have a pose. So here we have a pose of the T-pose. And so I can connect that in here. And then you could just connect it like this and then start tweaking this guy, try to match them up so they have roughly the same pose. But that seems to be a lot of work, so I don't want to do that. So I clear that. This actually comes with a T-pose as well. So you can see I have the FBX clip name. I have a take one, there's a T-pose. And then I have the other one that is just animation. So let's just copy this. And call this T-pose. And then let's set that to take one here. So there we go. And in this rig match pose, one of the things you can do is you can have a reference frame, which is a frame that you want to use for the matchup. So I'm going to use a switch here. It's not like a super elegant solution, but it works. So I'm going to do it like this. And if I middle click that, I can see this is 22 frames. So then I can say, okay, so if the frame is more than 22, then I want it to switch, which means that he runs and then he goes back to T-pose. So then I can just go to this rig match pose and set the reference frame to T-pose, or I can set the reference frame to 22. So like so. So now by doing that, oh, not 22 actually, because it's over 22, so 23. Now we can see that they have the same pose. And I don't want to scale this target skeleton, I want to scale the source skeleton. So here we go, and then I'm going to drop down a map points. With this we can define what part is driving what. So if I go here, and I can move one of them away a little bit, I can just start matching them like so. But you don't have to watch me doing that, because you can also export the mappings, so we can just import what I've done before. So I'm going to change this point number to attribute values, import mappings, and then here you go. So here it's mapped up and ready. Cool, so now everything is ready for the retarget. Now we just need a full body IK. I'm going to drag that here, and what do you know? Boo! We have a retarget version. So I'm going to convert that to Motionclip, like so, and here we see that. And then let's see if it works. I'm just going to have an agent. I'm going to have an agent clip. And then I'm going to attach this. So again, Motionclip. I'm going to call this updated or new clip. New clip. Let's see if it works. New clip. Oh, I connected this to the second port here. It should be on the first port. So by doing that, now we have her running. Very cool. Okay, so that's the first step. And what I want to do, I want to blend this FBX with this FBX. So let's do that. So just to make it easy for myself, I'm just going to copy this because I know this is working. So I'm just going to do it like this. And then I'm going to, instead of a run, I'm going to connect that to the kick. I'm going to middle click the kick and see it's 46 frames. So then here it's going to be 46. And the rig match pose is going to be 47. So here we go. So here we can see the kick. Cool. Okay. So now we have that ready. Now I want to blend these two together. I want to use a Motionclip sequence and connect them like this. And see what we get. So let's go. And here we see she's running, but then she gets blended back to the beginning and do the kick. And that is obviously not what we want. We want her to start doing the kick over here. And then in this Motionclip sequence, you can set the locomotion joint. So you can set the hips, for example. And then you can set translation. I want to use the locomotion joint. And now you can see this is moved forward. Cool. Okay, so let's see how that looks. So it's kind of working, but it's not great. So you can see like this foot should be planted, but instead you get this blend when it gets slides back and then she does the kick. So what we want to do in this case, actually, we want to do the blend around the foot. And you can specify that. So you can go to this match translation and then you can choose custom joint and then you can just select the right foot here. Right foot. And by doing that, now you can see she's taking off from the foot. And it's a little bit wobbly here, so let's put some blend frames there. So now we have a little bit of a blend, or maybe even more. So there we go. It feels like she's going slower when she does a kick. So maybe we can do like a retime here. And set that to, oops. And set that to, I don't know, 0.9 maybe. Whatever you feel is right. Whew. It could even be slower. That looks better. Yeah, this is cool. I have this clip, but I obviously want to use locomotion in my crowd later. And now I just have this. Now I have this agent moving within the clip. So how can I change that? There's a node for that actually. So you can, if you convert this back, if you do Motionclip and do evaluate, I'm gonna by doing that, it converts this to pose again. And then you can drop down this extract locomotion. So you specify the hips as the locomotion node, and you see now you get this locomotion node here, and the animation is in place. So now we can convert that back to Motionclip. And by doing that, now we have her in place. And we can also use this apply locomotion, and then you will see her running. Woo! So let's try something more advanced. So we have this crowd here, and what I want to do is I want to take two of these agents, these two here. I want to promote them to animation. I want to do some stuff to it. In this case, I want them to hold hand, and then I want to convert them back into crowd. So the first thing we need to do is to convert them to poses. So I can use an agent character unpack for that. If we go to the yellow third port here, we can see now the whole crowd has been converted to poses. But we just need these two, so let's go and select them. And now we have just these two. Sweet. So step number 2 is that I want to have a point that I can connect the two hands to. So what I want to do now is I want to create a point roughly in the middle. That's going to be my base. And I'm going to do that by taking all these points and I'm just going to average them out, and then it would be like roughly here. I'm going to promote the point position to a detail attribute. And then I'm just going to copy it. And then I'm going to promote it back. So by doing that, now we can see all the points have the same position, roughly where we want them. And you can see we still have all the points, and we don't want that. So let's have a blast. And this blast, let's do set points, 0, delete, non-selected. So now we have 1 point that we're going to attach the hands to. Step number 3 is now it's time to create some controllers for the arms. We're going to use the delete joints again. And then I'm going to select the ones I want. So I want to have that one, that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. And then delete not selected. So here we go. I also want to move back the elbow controllers a little bit. So I'm sure that they're always behind the agents. I'm going to do a transform, and then I'm going to just drag them back here. So that's good. Another thing I want to do is right now I have all the transforms still on them If we look at the points here, we see we have this 3x3 matrix. I don't want that because I don't want it to influence the IK solve. So I'm gonna have an attribute delete. And then I'm gonna set this to transform. Like so. So now we have the controllers and we have the point we're going to attach them to. So let's attach them to that point. So I'm going to have an attribute copy. And then I'm going to copy the point position. Now all the points get that, but I obviously just want the bottom one. So I want these two. And there we go. Okay. So now when we have that ready, let's create the IK chains. So I'm going to have IK chains. And then I'm going to connect these. And you see I get an error. And I get an error just because if I select this, for example, you can see that is called right arm. And this guy also have a right arm. And that is a problem. So now this node gets confused and doesn't know what to do. In this case, because it's just two agents, we could split them in two and then set up IK chains per agent. But sometimes say that you have lots of agents and it would be very impractical to split them up. In that case, we can add a prefix. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to drop down a wrangle. And I'm going to set that to primitive. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to have a prefix. And that is going to be equal to the agent name. So if we look at this, you can see we have a name that is unique for each agent. And now we have a prefix that has the same name. Okay. And then I'm going to promote that to points. So here I'm going to have prefix and from primitive to points. And I can tell this agent character unpack, please transfer that attribute. So I'm going to say prefix. So now I can construct a new name from this. So I'm going to have wrangle. First of all, I'm going to save the original name because we need that later. I'm going to say old name equals to name. Okay, that's good. And now let's make a new name. So I have name equals to prefix. And then let's have an underscore. You don't really need it, but it's easier to read. And then name. And if we would look at this, you can now see that we have the old name, which is the original name, and we have this new name, which is the prefix plus the old name. And now we are ready to solve. This still gives an error, but if we just cut it out and Control Z, then it works. And then let's select her, and that one, and that one, and then match by name. And then let's create another one. That one, that one, and that one, and match by name. If we now drag this blend up, you can see it's trying to solve. It's not great though, because it can't really reach that point. So we could just add a rig pose. And then we can start manipulating these guys. Oh, another thing I'm going to do, by the way, I'm also going to go to the IK chains and I'm going to say orient tip. And that way, when we rotate the hands, that will be picked up by the solver. So I'm going to have orient tip and orient tip. And now you can see it can get like freaked out from it, but can easily adjust that. So this is a nice feature. So if I go to here, and we have 2 points in the same place, so then I suddenly get them with the name here, so I can see which one I select. So let's select the lady, and then I'm going to rotate, or something like this maybe. And then let's do the dude. Still not great, but let's first convert it to crowd agents, and then we can see it a little bit better, and then we can tweak it further. So I have these two, solved. And let's uncheck this template. So we have these guys, and now we want to convert it to crowd. So we can use an agent post from rig. If we just do that like this, nothing happens. And nothing happens because this is looking for the joint names, and we have added a prefix to it, so it doesn't match up anymore. So what you can do then is that you can drop down a wrangle, and we can just retrieve the old name again. So we say name is equal to old name. But now everyone gets over here. So everyone is using this rig. And it's the same problem as before because it doesn't know which one it's supposed to use. So it's just take one of the poses and it just attach all the agents to that. So you need to have some logic to separate them. And one way you can do that is that you can use a for each loop. So I'm going to drag that up here. I'm going to just take them away for now. And by doing that, now it's just going to loop through each agent and do something. Cool. So what I want to do is I'm going to see, I will basically check for each agent. I'm going to check this one. Is the prefix the same as the agent name? In that case, then I know it's correct. Otherwise, I just want to remove it. So if this is, so for example, if we are on Sarah 3, we want to remove all the Andre 3 and so on. So the name here is going to be a primitive, so let's just promote the prefix to a primitive again. So I'm going to have a promote, an attribute promote, just we do point to primitive prefix. Okay, that is the first step. Then I'm going to have a wrangle. I'm going to let this run over the primitives. And then I'm going to say, hey, let's check out the name. So we do if, and if the prefix is not equal to, and we do the primitive from the second port, and then name. And here, because it's looping through each agent, so every time the primitive number is going to be 0, because there is just one agent. And then, so we can just set this to 0. And then let's see, if they are not matching, then I want to remove it. So then I do remove prim at primnum, and I want to remove the point as well. Let's see if I loop through this, and there you can see. So here, now I get that one, and here for that one, you get that one. That is exactly what we want. So now from that, we can just add this guy back in, and like so, and now suddenly we have this out. Cool. And then from here, because it's still not great here, so you can still use the rig pose and just go, like move him up maybe a little bit. For example, his hand or her hand, and his hand. Something like that maybe. And there you go. Very useful stuff. That's it for me. I hope that you learned something, and I look forward to see what everyone will create in the future. I am out.